I'm Justin, and this is Deshaun, and we're in the middle.
Myself.
Y'all don't already know what time it is. I got the black V-neck on. So welcome to another episode of In the Middle. We're being fat as hell. Are we fat today? I'm fat presenting.
Period.
Oh.
Period.
Oh God, ghetto booties 305. Period. But
city girls.
We do. City bottoms is what I like to call it. But we're here to have a conversation about desirability and being fat and anti-fatness. What I just learned not too long ago from the research Deshaun was doing. He just wrote an excellent piece. It is on kingareach.com. The link is in the comments. We appreciate him. So what made us want to talk about this? Like, what brought it up? We always see things on Twitter and social media about fat people and experience that in real life. But what made this conversation necessary today?
So I think that in the last few weeks there's been like an overwhelming amount of anti-fatness in terms of like language that's been presented on social media. Like a lot of folks talking about Ashley Shackelford, a lot of folks who have been
We love her.
We do love her. Folks just talking about like fat folks in general. There's been like a lot of anti-fat content. There's been like people posting videos of fat men from
the TLC documentary. I think it was
Pound Club.
Yeah, I think he was getting out the truck.
Out of the truck, and him and his family were buying pizzas and shit like that. Like a lot of like really hateful rhetoric. Aside from that, there have been a lot of folks who have just been talking about like Rihanna, Nicki Minaj, and Winston Duke, and so forth and so on, and their thickness.
Okay, I was about to say, where are you going with this?
Rihanna, Nicki Minaj like gaining weight, and then like Winston Duke being the thick daddy and mountain daddy and them thick Baku and
Thick Baku
and all these other names. And I had been like talking about it for a long time on Twitter, and finally made myself sit down and write the piece because I knew that it was something that I couldn't get across the way I wanted to completely through tweets. So that's why I decided to write it.
And I know that for me, this is something I've talked about a couple of times on the podcast, probably every once in a while in YouTube videos, but I never felt completely confident enough to talk about it. And I think that comes from people not taking me serious when I talk about desirability. It's almost, oh girl, you're jealous, you need to lose weight. And it's just, you need to do more to be more desirable. And I think me and Deshaun have had several conversations about, it's not that we need to lose the weight or they need to lose the weight or they need to do this, or it's really, we need to have a conversation of how we see fat people, and are we seeing them as human first. And while Deshaun was doing his research, he sent me some links and other things, and I started looking and I was like, damn, it's more deeper than I thought it was. Even we had the conversation about if we were to have a full sit down in the middle episode talking about it, do we need to put some desirable people in it just to make them watch? And that was me looking at it as like a brand, business wise. Like I want people to watch it, but I don't think they'll be interested. And I was like, damn, so that's me being anti-fat as well. And
I don't so much think that is you being anti-fat. I think that is you reckoning with having to exist in an anti-fat world as a fat person, and realizing that desirability says that like there won't be as many views on a video where the people talking are two fat, dark-skinned black queer folks, right? Like that. I don't think that is you being anti-fat. I think that's you being realistic. I think that is you really like talking through it and working through what exactly how branding works, how marketing works. I think you saying that out loud is exactly what people who are marketing products, who are branding products, who are selling products say to themselves. They know that the lighter skin models, the thinner models, the more fit models are going to be what sells the product over those who look like us.
Yeah, because you can even see that in McDonald's commercials.
Right.
Any food, like I've never really seen. And if it is a fat person doing a food commercial, it's almost like funny. Mm-hmm. Like you had the one guy dancing and stuff after he got through eating a cheeseburger and stuff. And I think that's telling of me. And this has been I've been on YouTube, been doing YouTube videos and content videos for the last, 6 years. And I've noticed that how some people are viewed online with not as much personality and not as much, I hate to say that, because I think it's really subjective. Like somebody might be more entertaining than I am, but I think I'm sometimes funny. But I know when people see me, they don't see me as desirable. Mm-hmm. I don't get those comments as much. I do get them, especially from my black women. Mm-hmm. I get those comments about the content. But when I know looking at others, like, oh, he's so fine, like, well, they so fine, she's so fine. Well, I don't get that much because I don't watch too many, but they said a lot about male guys who do YouTube videos, like, oh my God, he's just so fine, I can listen to him all day. And it just made me think about how extra I have to be. Not necessarily extra, but I have to make sure that I'm working twice as hard to make sure that people are paying attention to me, because they're giving this person a view just because they are desirable. And they're not. Oh, they'll look at my shit and be like, oh, girl, I'm not interested. But if I give them some shit in the first 10, 15 seconds, they're going to continue to watch.
Yeah, I think that is, that is very, like, common, like, across the board. So the reason why I even decided to write the piece and why we are sitting down talking about it here is because for a long time, I've always been fat. Mm-hmm. And fat is...
Even you saying that, like, really, like, it fucks with me.
No, I know. I know.
Like,
it took me a long time to be able to get to a point where I'm using fat as an identifier. Mm-hmm. But that is who I am, and that's why I wrote that.
And it doesn't matter you say fat or thick. You still look the same.
Correct. Right. And so I am fat. I've always been fat, except for one point in my life where I was really sick, and that's a different conversation. So, when people, I would try to run away from being identified as fat, mm-hmm. because I knew how demonizing it was. I know how dehumanizing how dehumanized I felt when people would refer to me as fat, right? Like, I knew that there was a really negative connotation attached to the word. And so fat to me was the same thing that faggot is to me, or that nigger is to me, right? And so for a long time, I attempted to run away from that, to not like be labeled as that, but through people like Ashley Shackelford and Jamal Lewis and Your Fat Friend, which is a person online who writes a lot. She's a queer woman. Yeah. Through a lot of people's online work, I grew more confident in my own fatness. Roxane Gay is a beautiful writer, and she's a black woman as well. And so, like, through other people's work, I realized that my fatness was part of who I am, mm-hmm. and that I wasn't insecure or unhappy with my fatness per se. What I was unhappy with was how people responded to it. Mm-hmm. What I was unhappy with was how I didn't want to change my fatness. I don't want to change my body. What I want is for people to respond differently to fatness than what they do now. Okay. And so I know that a lot of fat folks, we want to be called big or big boned or thick or whatever in place of fat, because fat hurts our feelings. Fat makes us like feel some type of way, and I think that's valid. I think that fat language does work to enhance or enable anti-fat like violence. Mm-hmm.
Because we see a lot of it on social media.
Right. You see a lot of it on social media, right?
There was a couple of conversations on Twitter, and I think both of those conversations started from people that I actually, well, one of them started from someone I follow. There was a conversation about, well, I see a lot of fat people dating folks who are not fat. So maybe you all need to date other fat people. And I was confused because I was just, that made no sense to me. I know fat people are dating other fat people, but that's not how we, teach people to be, to unpack that. I like, what are you saying when you look at someone as fat and you're looking at them as disgusting and unhealthy? Because we know we use, it's not healthy, but we know they don't normally give a fuck. 10 times out of 10, they don't give a fuck about them being healthy, because we'll see another person do the same thing, but because they appear to be healthy, they don't say anything. So there was a conversation about that, and there was also another conversation about people who have a waist of a size 36 on up should be wearing floral pants. Mm-hmm. And I watched as some of the people I follow, who I respect, engage in the conversation, who are not fat, who use terms like, or words and stuff like thick, and we had a conversation about how fat is placed on their bodies. Mm-hmm. You said that, and I thought about it. I was like, you should be able to wear what the fuck you want to wear, and I think even for me, I wrestle with that because I don't like to wear a lot of clothes. I think people do say, well, girl, you need to wear clothes that fit your body, but then when I wear certain clothes and stuff, you still don't see me as desirable or a human, period. Is this all you got? But then we know we go in certain sections. I go into Macy's and stuff. There are not a lot of size 36 and 38. They literally tell us, girl, you gotta take your fat ass online and order that shit.
Yeah, and then some of the folks, a lot of people after that moment who start posting pictures in their floral clothing where maybe a couple sizes up from there, but they had gym bodies or fit bodies or look more desirable, whatever. But I want to move the conversation a little bit away from like desirability as it relates to sex and dating and that, because I think people oftentimes, they hear us talk about anti-fatness and they don't think of it as systemic. They think of it as anecdotal or personal, and don't like to really reckon with how anti-fatness shows up in our everyday lives. But after writing this piece and looking at the long list of facts about how anti-fatness shows up in our everyday lives was eye-opening for me, even as a fat person who experienced a lot of it. So like, I read that in 49 out of the 50 states in the U.S., you can be fired from your job just from being fat, and there's no laws to protect you from it.
Wow.
The only state in the U.S. that has a law to protect you from that is Michigan. I learned that in a specific study, only 11% of fat men marry, and only 20% of fat women marry. I learned...
So the numbers are higher for women?
The numbers are higher for women, and I think that has a lot to do with the way people fetishize fat women's bodies, but that's a different conversation.
Yeah, it is. On next chapter.
I went through and read...
11%.
11%.
And that was probably just heterosexual men.
I'm not even sure, honestly. It probably was, honestly, because it didn't specify sexuality, so it may have just been
it might have been just automatic.
Or like they didn't account for that. They were just saying if you got married or not.
Okay.
But I also, of course, was reading, and there were a couple studies about how fat women specifically, their stories with sexual assault don't ever get reported.
Oh, yes.
Because police officers are like, why would anybody rape you? Like, I don't really believe you. It doesn't go beyond the police officer. Like, just so many different things. Doctors, there was a doctor named Dr. Kenneth Walker, I believe his name is, who says that fat people, he believes that for the good of the country and for the good of the economy, fat folks should be locked away in prison camps. That was just a couple decades ago.
Oh, damn.
Like, that was in a 2001 study. He had said that just a couple years prior to. So like there was a study where like 33% of nurses said that fat folks were awkward, repulsive. 23% of teachers, I believe, in one study said that being fat was like the worst thing that could ever happen to you.
Someone who teaching, like, so you can imagine how
these are our teachers, our doctors, our nurses, people who are taking care of us in different facets.
So they're going to look at these people different.
Correct. We're not getting hired because we're fat. We're getting fired because we're fat. We aren't getting proper medical care because we're fat. We're not getting jobs because we're fat. We are, and then we go back to not really being seen as desirable in terms of sex and relationships. So then we're also not getting married because we're fat. People are not finding us desirable. But then we're moving towards a different place where people are beginning to find fat-ish bodies, fat bodies more desirable. But the fatness has to look a certain way. The fatness has to look like thick Rihanna or Winston Duke or thick Baku. It can't look like me. It can't look like Roxane Gay.
I don't think Winston Duke is fat.
Well, he's not fat.
It's not fat at all.
Winston Duke is not fat. He's not fat, but people wrote whole think pieces after Black Panther talking about
him being fat,
talking about how groundbreaking it was that Black Panther had a fat, thick man.
You have
in
got
this
this
movie.
shit in you.
I'm not lying. Like there were whole
Did the
threads.
colonizer
No, these are black people. These were black people. I remember like sitting on Twitter looking at whole threads talking about that. So much so that Winston Duke went on record saying that he was thankful for black women for helping him heal from scars around his sides. And I have to laugh because like I mean it's cute. I'm glad that he was able to heal. I'm glad that I'm always going to be here for folks because it's like it is nuanced. Winston Duke is living in America. This is a white supremacist society. He's 6'4" and 250 pounds. So I know the reality of a black man who towers in that way over white people. There's a specific reality to that with Terry Crews, which is our conversation that's got to come up too.
Absolutely.
So I understand that, but I also understand the reality for a Roxane Gay who is 6'3" and weighs about 400 pounds. I understand the reality for the man on Twitter who was 600 pounds and was a little over 6 feet. Like we are not being provided space to heal in the same way that people like Winston Duke is, right? Okay. And so because of that, like that is where my frustration with like this new wave of fat acceptance, because many of us are told, like, be confident as long as you're losing weight. Be confident as long as you already look a certain way. Be confident as long as, if you're a woman, you have the breast and the hips and the ass, but you don't have a stomach. Or you have a little bit of a stomach, but it's not overflowing, right? Or be confident if you're a man with thick thighs, but you also, like, if you got a big stomach, if you got man boobs, like, so it's like there are qualifiers for which types of fatness are acceptable. And what I was talking about in the piece, and what I talk about a lot, is that these qualifiers, this dichotomy that we create between thickness and fatness, instead of recognizing that all of that is fatness, is deadly. You get Winston Duke, who's allowed to now become famous, make lots of money, and be celebrated and heal from his scars with dealing with his size, while Michael Brown and Eric Garner are dead. Because here you have dark-skinned, fat black men whose weight sat on their bodies in a way that was different than Winston Duke, and they were poor, and therefore they dealt with violence at the hands of the state, while Winston Duke is now famous and has now healed from his scars, right? So, like, I guess.
So do you think people might? I know for me, I've heard arguments of, well, I'm concerned about you being healthy, and I honestly feel like that some people are using that as a weapon. Because I've seen people like my friends who are living unhealthy lives turn around, whatever you consider that shit is. They'll be doing something that might be seen as unhealthy, but they'll tell me that you need to do this and that. I've also had friends tell me that I did not have a, and it really hurt me, and I had a conversation with them. I still love them much. But I was talking about the glow up. And I hate those hashtags on Twitter. I fucking hate them. I do understand the need for them. There are some folks who are getting attention for them, and I appreciate it, but I think sometimes we get a lot of folks who don't necessarily need it come to the forefront, and it bothers me. So I've been trying to do a better job of reaching out to the folks who are normally not seen in the light, who are living their lives and being positive in whatever body they want to be in for themselves. And I was remember the glow up specifically, and I said, you know what? Do I have a glow up picture? And I felt already scared to post one because people say, well, girl, you didn't have no glow up because you're fat. That's not a glow up. Like, you gain weight. And I asked my friend, I said, girl, I need to post my glow up. And she said, well, girl, your glow up has already passed because when I was in the military, when you was in basic training, you had a 6-pack. So that was your glow up. That time has passed. So
basura.
Just okay. But tuna, I was confused, and it hurt me because I was like, this is my friend. How do they not see me? I don't even think they see me as a person. Like, it's not even about being desirable because it's my friend. I don't even think they literally see me as fat. That's it. Period. Okay? That's all they see. And I was kind of confused because I'm more than that. And during that time of me having a 6-pack, I was very unhappy. I was mentally unstable. I was very broke. But I looked like I was, quote unquote, healthy. And I just didn't understand it.
And what even is health, first and foremost, right?
They don't understand it. Because even at my weight now, I just left the doctor, and the doctor told me my blood pressure is good, my oxygen is good, I don't have diabetes, none of these things. I am healthy, and even if I did have diabetes, at least I'm making sure I'm taking care of myself to be healthy.
And just like beyond that point, anyone who studies health, and be it through medicine, through psychology, whatever like the medium may be, knows that health is not just a physical thing, it is also mental. So if we're being honest, like, one definition of health is someone who is in good shape mentally and physically. So if we're being honest, a lot of these folks who are walking around considering themselves healthy, who are walking around with fit bodies, gym bodies, are not healthy because they have mental illnesses just like the rest of us. And that discounts their health. But beyond that, like, even if you do have every disease in the book to come from fatness, which is a different conversation, but even if you do have all these diseases associated with fatness, I should say,
like high blood pressure,
and diabetes and high cholesterol and so forth and so on, that doesn't discount your humanity. It doesn't change the fact that you are still a human being, and that whether you are in good health or not, no one should be discriminated against or oppressed for being fat or being who they are. But also that